Ji Ka Khalsa.
Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.
By Mohan Singh Ji, with regards to the report that was released today by Rotherham Borough Council, it has highlighted an appalling failure of the system to protect vulnerable children. It suggests over 1,400 children were subjected to some of the most horrific abuse imaginable. We've only ever seen 5 men convicted for this type of crime from Rotherham. What are your thoughts?
Well, first of all, I think the scale of the report is simply staggering, and some of the details are extremely hard to digest. 1,400 children over a period of 16 years, and you've only got 5 convictions. There's been mega failings throughout the whole system. It's just beggars belief. It's staggering. And if you take this 1,400, and because this is just in one borough, if you just multiply by another 100 boroughs, you would see the extent of the problem that we are engrossed in the UK. I mean, reports from government itself are saying that up to 23,000 plus children are actually being groomed or sexually abused right now, are in care. 23,000 children.
So from your experience from the Sikh Awareness Society, you don't think this is a localised Rotherham issue, this is a nationwide issue?
This is a nationwide issue. It's happening north, south, and if you just look at some of the figures that we've had from Newcastle, groups, Operation Sanctuary, groups of over 100 people grooming young girls for so many years up in the north. Bradford, you look at, they're finding groups of hundreds of people in a group grooming young girls. In the south, the Met recently put a report out that in the last 6 months, it has had 500 complaints from young people only in the last 6 months. What do you think happened in the last 30 years? So it's happening across the country.
So, Mohan Singh, there's clearly a system failure. It's allowing children to be abused, trafficked, sold like meat in supposedly one of the world's most advanced countries. Not just in Rotherham, but across the UK. This is truly bewildering. How can the system have got it so wrong? Has the system made any changes to improve? Is there any changes that the SAS are trying to bring forward?
I think we're always pushing forward for law change. It needs a complete look at this from outside the box. Whatever they've put in so far hasn't worked. From so many cases going back from the Derby case, the Rochdale case, the Manchester case, certain things they've put in haven't really worked. What they really need, the main problem that we've got here, and this is what keeps coming back to us, is that when a third party complains to the police, it's not taken seriously. It's recorded as a crime, but it's not taken seriously until the victim comes forward.
Of course, we see victims may not come forward. This is not typical of a crime, for example, a burglary, where a victim is willing to come forward more or less straight away.
Right, yeah.
You're talking about a victim of grooming who's been manipulated, who may not know she's actually a victim in that period of abuse.
Well, there's two sorts of victims there, where you've got one victim who would probably be terrorized in the manner that we will kill you, we will burn your house down, or we will lift your family members, scare the living daylights out of that young child who is only probably 12, 13, 14 at that age. And then the other thing is, where the victim won't come forward, is when you're in this love fraud, when you're in this grooming process, the victim itself thinks that it's in love with the perpetrator. And when you're in love with somebody, you're not going to go to the police and complain about that person. So there's two things that really keep coming forward when we're dealing with a lot of these cases.
So you've got a child unwilling to come forward for the reasons you've explained, either engrossed in a relationship or the victim of blackmail, threats, intimidation.
Yeah.
Now,
I mean, even this, just stopping you for a second, even this report itself says that victims were doused in petrol. They were going to be set alight or
Horrific.
burnt. It's horrific. Now, if it's happening there, it's got to be happening around the country.
so it's clearly now the system isn't geared up towards helping that victim until that victim makes a statement, which is not likely under these circumstances.
Well, if you look at all the cases, how many victims have actually come and gone to a police station and says, I have been groomed? A person who's been brainwashed or thought reform never knows its thought is being reformed until it's actually got caught into the cobweb. So it's not going to complain. So if you look at all the major cases that have come to light, it is always a charity or somebody behind pushing it, talking to the child, giving the child the confidence and the support network so it then can go to the police.
So Mohan Singh, clearly the law is not working. The changes that the Sikh Awareness Society are proposing, could you explain some of them?
Well, I think the main one, one or two comes to mind that we're really pushing for, and the main ones are that when a third party complains to a parent, a carer, a distant relative, a friend, when they complain to the police that something is happening wrong with that child, then that warrants a full investigation in the same manner as if somebody reports an act of terrorism. It's not the terrorist that's going to come and tell you that I'm committing terror, but a third person reports an act of terrorism where the police then or the authorities then go in full blast. I think this should be on that level, whereas when a third party complains, it should be a thorough investigation.
When we're talking about investigation, we're talking about surveillance.
We're talking about the whole kit and caboodle. We're talking about whatever they can do or whatever they can throw at it, because the victim might never come forward and the perpetrator is going to get away with it. Whereas when the third party will complain, at least you've got a head start and you can maybe catch the perpetrators in the act of committing the crimes.
So, within the laws at the moment, the laws that you state are inadequate, is there anything the police can do right now to protect these victims?
I think the police, the social services, government, MPs, councillors, whoever's in power needs to actually be brave, needs to put the fear factor out, throw political correctness where it belongs, in the garbage bin, and then only can we help. We can move forward to help young victims.
Right, Mohan Singh, when we're talking about these predators, these vile men, broadly speaking, they fall into two categories. One, a standalone paedophile. Two, a grooming gang. Street grooming, as it's been now known. Could you quickly explain the difference between the two?
Well, when it's one-on-one, the perpetrator is grooming a person. It's for its self-gratification and for himself, and it's not going to share it. It's very secret. When we come across cases like that, the child or whoever's being groomed is not being shared by anybody. It's just for that one-on-one. When you're talking about these grooming gangs, and the terminology really is grooming groups, because these groups are known to each other. Some of them are relatives. You look at the high profile cases where brothers have been involved, sets of brothers, uncles, and the whole family come in here to groom people and to use them, abuse them. Now, groups are using these people for their own sexual gratification, but they're also then selling them off for money, for favors, for certain things. So the person is not just going to be used by one or two people. It can be used by one or two people in that city, in that group, in different cities. It's been trafficked around the country.
Looking at some of the convictions within this field of street grooming groups as you call them,
Yeah.
there's been a massive cross-section across age groups and across towns and cities. So these are very well networked organisations operating within various age groups. How does this come about?
Well, it's organised crime. It is organised crime. That's all I can say on this. It's
So they have the resources for the abuse to be elevated on a much higher level than a standalone paedophile.
Of course there is. If I believe that if the police really did a thorough job, then they will see the connections between these grooming gangs across the country.
Would they be involved in any other crimes?
Yeah, I think it relates from drugs. You've got prostitution. You've got trafficking of children. You know, I'm alarmed that the UK has become the capital of this kind of crime.
Why do you think that is? What's the lure here? Is it the money? Is it the gratification?
For the groomers, it would be, you know, both really. You're getting your kicks out, and you're also making money out of this, and you could be making thousands out of this. We've come across children, a young girl about 3 years ago who was groomed over a period of 3-4 months. And when we were talking to her in her own safety, she was saying that some nights she could earn up to £1,000. Now just imagine how many people she would have had to bed to earn £1,000.
So when we're talking about 1,400 children in one town being abused, pimped, and the sums that you're talking, this is surely a very lucrative business for these groomers.
It is. It's also a lucrative business. It's also a safe business. Because
conviction rates are so low.
Conviction rates are so low, and the victim has to complain, and the groomers know that. Until the victim is not complaining, the groomers are safe.
Lastly, there'll be a lot of worried parents listening to this. What advice could you give them, Mohan Singh?
Well, you know, the only advice that I would give them is to watch the telltales of your children. Be fully aware of your children, and that means from a very young age you must be attending their school, their report sessions, and who they're friends and who they're hanging out with and everything like that. So you know your child inside out. So when your child is behaving slightly oddly, you will be able to pick the signs up. That's if you're spending time with your children, and we need to spend time with our children. So just imagine if a child is a very happy-go-lucky child and suddenly then becomes withdrawn. You know that you've got some sort of problem with that child. You need to look at it. Just imagine if a child is normally very family-orientated, now is sitting up in his room. It's a problem. A happy-go-lucky child now suddenly just cries, or a child who's very confident becomes unconfident, or a school grades are dropping, her attendance in school is dropping. Parents need to look at all these tell signs. And you know what? If they go onto the Sikh Awareness webpage, the warning signs, the 12 warning signs that we normally give, will be on the webpage.
Thank you, Mohan Singh. Thanks for your time.
ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ.